Australia is facing a wave of anti-immigration protests, and many are asking, why are Indians being singled out? Is it just about jobs and housing, or is there something deeper at play? In this video, we'll uncover the real reasons behind the headlines, including the surprising role of far-right groups in fueling these tensions. And here's the twist: there's one fact about Australia's immigration debate that almost no one is talking about, and I'll reveal it later in this video. So stay with us till the end, because Aussie Steps is here to give you the full story, not just the headlines. To understand why Indians are being targeted in Australia's current immigration debate, we need to look beyond the surface. Over the past decade, Indian migrants have become one of the fastest-growing communities in Australia, excelling in education, skilled jobs, and business. While many Australians appreciate the diversity and economic boost, a vocal minority sees this rapid change as a threat. Rising costs of living, housing shortages, and job competition have created frustration among locals. And unfortunately, migrants often become the scapegoat. Social media and sensational news stories amplify these fears, making it seem like migrants are to blame for every problem. But the reality is far more complex. Australia's economy relies heavily on skilled migrants, including Indians, to fill critical gaps in healthcare, IT, and engineering. Without this talent, many industries would struggle to survive. Yet, when times get tough, it's easier for some to point fingers than to look for real solutions. This tension isn't new, but it's being exploited in new ways, especially by groups with their own agendas. And that's where the far right comes in. Far-right groups in Australia have seized on these anxieties, using social media and public rallies to spread anti-immigration messages. Their tactics are calculated. They highlight isolated incidents, exaggerate statistics, and frame migrants, especially Indians, as outsiders who threaten Australian values. These groups are small but loud, and their influence is growing thanks to online echo chambers and sensationalist coverage. They often claim to speak for the average Australian, but their real goal is to divide communities and gain political attention. What's important to understand is that most Australians do not support these extreme views. In fact, surveys consistently show that the majority value multiculturalism and recognize the positive contributions of migrants. However, when far-right voices dominate the conversation, it can feel like the country is more divided than it really is. This creates fear and uncertainty, not just among migrants, but also among locals who worry about social cohesion. The result: more protests, more heated debates, and a cycle of mistrust that's hard to break. But there's another side to this story that rarely gets told. Despite the noise from far-right groups and the headlines about protests, the reality on the ground is often very different. In workplaces, universities, and neighborhoods across Australia, Indians and other migrants are building strong relationships with locals. Many Australians have Indian colleagues, friends, or neighbors, and these everyday connections are quietly breaking down stereotypes. Community events, cultural festivals, and shared experiences are helping to foster understanding and respect. In fact, some of the loudest voices against racism and division come from ordinary Australians who stand up for their migrant friends. It's also worth noting that Indian migrants are among the most successful in Australia, with high rates of employment, home ownership, and educational achievement. These facts rarely make the news, but they are a powerful counter to the negative narratives. Still, the fear and uncertainty created by protests and far-right rhetoric can't be ignored. It affects how migrants feel about their safety and future in Australia. That's why it's so important to look at the bigger picture and not let a minority of voices define the national conversation. So, what's really driving the current wave of anti-immigration protests? And why are Indians at the center of it? The answer is a mix of economic anxiety, political opportunism, and the influence of far-right groups who thrive on division. When people feel uncertain about their jobs, housing, or future, it's easy for fear to take over, and for some, blaming migrants becomes a quick solution. Politicians and media outlets sometimes amplify these fears for their own gain, focusing on controversy rather than facts. But here's the truth: Australia's success as a nation has always depended on migration. From doctors and engineers to small business owners and students, migrants including Indians are helping to build a stronger, more dynamic country. The real challenge is not immigration itself, but how Australia manages change and supports both new arrivals and long-term residents. If you want to know the one fact that almost no one is talking about, here it is. The vast majority of Australians still believe in fairness, inclusion, and giving everyone a fair go. That's the real Australia, and it's worth remembering. If you found this video helpful and want to stay updated on the real stories behind Australia's immigration headlines, make sure to subscribe to Aussie Steps. We're here to bring you honest, balanced insights and expert tips that you won't find anywhere else. Share this video with friends or family who care about the truth. And let's keep the conversation going in the comments below. Remember, the loudest voices aren't always the most accurate, so stay informed, stay connected, and let Aussie Steps guide you through every twist and turn of your migration journey. Your story matters, and together, we can make a difference.